Hello, everyone. In this lecture, I am going to explain line by line Shakespeare's Sonnet 88. But before I start, let me give you a short background. In this sonnet, Shakespeare speaks to the young man he loves and says that if one day the young man criticizes him, rejects him, or speaks badly about him, he will not defend himself. Instead, he will agree with the young man's judgment, even helping him find reasons to put him down. Shakespeare's love is so strong that he wants to protect the young man's honor, even at the cost of his own dignity. This sonnet shows the poet's selflessness and devotion. He loves so deeply that he accepts any personal loss if it makes his beloved look better. Now let's begin line by line. When thou shalt be disposed to set me light. In this opening line, Shakespeare imagines a future moment when the person he loves may decide to think less of him. The phrase disposed to means willing to, and set me light means to treat me as unimportant or to consider me of little value. So in very simple words, Shakespeare is saying, if the time comes when you feel like I don't matter to you anymore and you decide to see me as worthless, I will accept it. Are you getting the point? I hope so. Simply, it means that Shakespeare says that if his beloved considers him unimportant or worthless, he will accept it. This line sets the tone of selfless love that runs throughout the sonnet. Instead of feeling angry or resentful at the idea of being undervalued, Shakespeare shows readiness to quietly endure it, which highlights both his humility and his deep devotion. And then says, "And place my merit in the eye of scorn." Now, Shakespeare continues with the same thought. He says that if the young man puts his merit, which means his worth, value, or good qualities, in the eye of scorn, which means treating it with mockery, contempt, or disrespect, he will still accept it. In simpler words, he say, if you insult me, if you make fun of the things that I consider to be my strengths or qualities, I will still not resist you. He loves the young man so much that even being laughed at or looked down on by him does not change his devotion. Upon thy side against myself I'll fight. This is one of the most powerful lines of the sonnet. Shakespeare says that if the young man argues against him, he will actually join the young man's side and fight against himself. The word fight here does not mean physical fighting, but rather arguing or defending a position. So, in simple words, he is saying, if you criticize me, instead of defending myself, I will agree with you and help prove that you are right. This shows extreme humility and love, because Shakespeare values the young man's honor more than his own dignity. And prove thee virtuous, though thou art forsworn. In this line, Shakespeare says he will defend the young man and prove him to be virtuous, meaning good, moral, and honorable, even if the young man is actually forsworn. The word forsworn means breaking a promise, lying, or being guilty of dishonor. In simpler words, it means, even if you are wrong, even if you break promises or lie, I will still prove to others that you are right and honorable. This shows how blind and unconditional Shakespeare's love is. He refuses to expose the faults of the young man, even when those faults are real. With mine own weakness being best acquainted, here Shakespeare says that he knows his own weaknesses better than anyone else. The phrase best acquainted means most familiar with. So he is saying, I am very familiar with my own faults. I know them very well. This shows humility, because instead of looking at the faults of others, he reflects on his own imperfections. It also sets up the idea that he can easily blame himself rather than the young man. Are you getting the point? And then says, upon thy part I can set down a story. It means that he is willing to speak or write a story in support of his beloved, even if that story is against himself. The phrase upon thy part means on your side or in your defense. The words set down a story mean to write or present an explanation, almost like giving evidence or an argument. So in simple words, he is saying, I will create reasons or tell a story that makes you look right, even if it makes me look wrong. This shows how completely he sides with his beloved. Even if his beloved treats him unfairly or accuses him, Shakespeare promises not to defend himself. Instead, he would actually help his beloved by adding to the reasons against himself. Of faults concealed wherein I am attainted. Here, Shakespeare admits that he can reveal his own hidden faults. The phrase faults concealed means mistakes or flaws that are normally kept secret, and attainted means declared guilty or condemned. So in simple words, he says, I can expose my own secret faults and accuse myself of being guilty, just to shift blame away from you. This shows that he is willing to sacrifice his own honor and dignity, making himself look bad so that the young man will look good. That thou in losing me shall win much glory. Here Shakespeare is saying that if his beloved decides to leave him, it will not damage the beloved's reputation at all. Instead, it will actually bring the beloved more honor and respect. The word thou means you, and losing me means rejecting or abandoning the poet. The phrase win much glory means to gain praise, honor, or admiration. So in simple words, the poet is saying, if you leave me, people will think highly of you, because I am so full of faults and weaknesses that letting me go will make you look wise, strong, and justified. Basically, he is putting himself down and lifting up his beloved. Instead of blaming his beloved for leaving him, he says it will actually be a reason for people to admire the beloved. And I by this will be a gainer too? In this line, Shakespeare is saying that even if his beloved leaves him and gains glory from it, he himself will also benefit in some way. The word gainer means someone who receives an advantage, profit, or benefit. So in simple terms, he is saying, I will also get something good out of this situation. Now, how can he gain if he is being left behind? Shakespeare explains that since all his thoughts and love are centered on his beloved, anything that benefits the beloved will also feel like a benefit to him. Even if it means hurting himself, he still feels rewarded because the beloved gains honor or happiness from it. This shows how completely selfless and devoted his love is. He is willing to accept pain, humiliation, or loss if it brings advantage to the person he loves. For bending all my loving thoughts on thee. Now he explains why he feels that he will still gain even if his beloved leaves him. The word bending here means directing, turning, or focusing. The phrase loving thoughts refers to all the poet's affectionate feelings, care, and attention. So when Shakespeare says, for bending all my loving thoughts on thee, he means that all his emotions, thoughts, and love are completely directed toward his beloved. He has given his entire mind and heart to this one person. Because of this, he feels that whatever benefits his beloved, whether it comes from him or against him, still feels like a benefit to himself. Simply put, since he has bent or directed all his love and attention toward his beloved, he sees no difference between his beloved's success and his own. His beloved's happiness becomes his happiness, and his beloved's honor becomes his honor. This shows again how selfless and unconditional his love truly is. The injuries that to myself I do. Shakespeare admits that in order to protect and honor his beloved, he is willing to hurt himself emotionally and mentally. The word injuries here does not mean physical harm, but rather the damage or pain he causes to his own reputation, self-respect, or feelings. When he says that to myself I do, he means that he is the one willingly doing this harm to himself. In other words, if his beloved accuses him or rejects him, Shakespeare will not fight back or defend himself. Instead, he will take the blame on himself, even if it means lowering his own dignity or making himself look worse in the eyes of others. He is ready to criticize himself and accept false faults, as long as it helps his beloved look better. Doing the vantage, double vantage me. In this line, Shakespeare explains that by giving his beloved an advantage, he himself also receives a kind of double advantage. The word vantage means benefit. He is saying that when he sacrifices himself, when he takes the blame, hides his beloved's faults, and accepts injuries to himself, It makes his beloved look better in front of others. That is the first advantage. His beloved's reputation and honor are saved. But then Shakespeare adds that this also benefits him, making it a double vantage. Because if his beloved's honor is safe, Shakespeare feels proud and satisfied in his heart. His love is so strong that his beloved's gain becomes his gain too. So even though he is hurting himself, he still feels like he is winning, because protecting the person he loves brings him inner joy. And then says, "Such is my love, to thee I so belong." In this line, Shakespeare sums up the depth of his devotion. The phrase, "such is my love," means, my love is of such a nature, or this is how my love works. Then he says, "To thee I so belong," which means that he completely belongs to his beloved, heart, mind, and soul. The word belong here does not just mean ownership. It shows total dedication, like he has given up his whole self to the person he loves. He is not keeping any part of his identity separate or independent. Instead, he has surrendered everything to the beloved. In simple words, he is saying, "My love is such that I am entirely yours, with no division or resistance." And then says, "That for thy right myself will bear all wrong." In this final line, Shakespeare concludes by showing just how far his love and loyalty go. The word right here means the honor, reputation, or dignity of his beloved. The phrase "bear all wrong" means to accept all blame, suffering, or false accusations, even when he is innocent. So he is saying, "I am so devoted to you that I will accept every kind of pain or injustice if it protects your honor." In other words, he is willing to sacrifice himself, take the blame, and endure hardship so that his beloved is seen as pure and faultless. This shows the highest form of selfless love. He doesn't care about his own suffering as long as his beloved is respected. In simple words, the poet is saying, if I have to carry all the wrongs and burdens just to keep your name and dignity safe, I will gladly do it because my love makes me completely yours. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, but please like the video and subscribe the channel. Thank you.